we're a part of people's stories. We're a part of their life moments. We're helping people celebrate milestones or get through a difficult time. And travel is so enriching and meaningful and impactful. So for me, it's all mission.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Travel Trends. This is your host, Dan Christian, and we're continuing our Captains of Industry Season 6 series today by speaking to Heidi Durflinger, who is the CEO of EF World Journeys USA. Last week, we spoke to Tao Tao, the co-founder of Get Your Guide, and we wanted to keep up the Captains of Industry theme before we jump into our next deep dive, which will be into emerging tour operators brought to us by our partners over at Toursetta. Now, Heidi is actually here in Chile, Patagonia, with me at the ATTA conference, but I recorded this interview with her after we had a chance to meet at the conference in Denver at the Elevate ATTA conference, and both of which we produced event spotlights, and I'm in the process of recording one right now at the event, and I have just finished one of the most extraordinary trips I've ever had the privilege to take. I cycled in the most beautiful region of Patagonia with this incredible company called Ciclo Austral. So it's Ciclo Austral Chile. You can find them on Instagram. You can find them with that name on their website with the .com. And I had the privilege to meet this extraordinary group of people and this amazing couple, Fernando and Claudia, who took us on this epic 5-day tour. And I just wanted to highlight this because this is what connects us as travelers and as a global community that is really passionate about this industry. So I'm thrilled to be here. I'm looking forward to moderating a session tomorrow. And we are going to be releasing a special ATTA Spotlight episode from our time here in Chile. So I'll be interviewing a number of amazing guests over the next few days and releasing that episode in the next couple of weeks. So definitely be on the lookout for that. And of course, we have our AI Summit coming up in a couple of weeks. So make sure that you are registered to join us for 2 extraordinary days on October 28th and 29th. And don't forget, we do post clips and highlights from all of our podcast episodes on our social channels at Travel Trends Podcast on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. Now, I'm so excited to bring this Captain of Industry conversation to you since the keynote that Heidi gave at Denver Elevate was absolutely extraordinary. And that's why she's been brought back here to be at Chile as well. And so I was thrilled to showcase her skills, ability, and also bring EF to the forefront since so few people actually know what a massive travel company EF is. And of course, they've launched their new EF Adventure brand. So there's many reasons I wanted to bring Heidi on, and that was a key one. And I'm thrilled to introduce you to her now. Welcome, Heidi. Thanks so much for joining us on Travel Trends.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Excited to talk travel with you.
For sure. And you are a true captain of industry. I saw you give an amazing keynote presentation in Denver at the Adventure Travel and Trade Association conference, which many of our listeners belong to. So certainly some of them would have seen you live as well. And I've had a good catch up with your team, Brian, of course. And we're very keen to have you on our podcast for a number of reasons. Obviously, EF is a massive travel company that has a fascinating background that I'm really keen for you to be able to share with all of our listeners. And you have been there for a number of years, that you've seen the company grow and evolve, and you are now continuing to be in the media and a strong presence for EF as the business continues to grow and expands into new categories. So I think it would probably be best if you give everyone a little bit of an understanding of EF, because I'm still amazed the number of people I mentioned EF and they don't know education first. They don't know much about the company. Yeah. I'm like, you're missing out on one of the biggest travel stories in the industry. So give us a little bit of background on EF, and then we'll talk about your background as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the best kept secret, right? So EF stands for Education First. So we are an international cultural exchange, language learning, travel business. So everything rotates around the idea of opening the world through education. So we have offices and staff members around the globe. So there's over 50,000 team members in about 500 offices and schools in 50 countries. And we do everything from, there's 4 main pillars to the business. So this includes educational travel, which I work with. We have student exchange programs and au pair programs. We have language schools globally, and then we have education programs. So international MBAs, international undergraduate students, those types of programs. So I work specifically with EF World Journeys, which is the family of brands that caters to adult travelers of all ages. So from 18 to 80, depending on what kind of adventure you're wanting to have. I work with 3 different travel brands that are part of the EF World Journeys family. So that includes EF Ultimate Break, which is for 18 to 35-year-olds. So young adults that are looking out to have an adventure and connect with other young people. We have then EF Adventures, which is our product for the active traveler. So it's less about an age and more about a mindset or a passion, people that are wanting to combine cultural immersion and seeing the most, iconic sites in the world, getting off the beaten path, but that combined with doing something active. So hiking, biking, or kayaking, or yoga at sunrise. So that's EF Adventures. And then the third travel brand that I work with is EF Go Ahead Tours. So EF Go Ahead Tours is for adults of all ages, typically travelers that are 35 plus, or families with their high school age students, couples or solo travelers. And it's cultural immersion, lifelong learning is sort of our mission with EF Go Ahead Tours to help people really learn about the destinations they're traveling to. So as you said, EF, has a big global presence. We're both global and local in the destinations that we're traveling. And I'm based here actually in our Cambridge, Massachusetts office.
Yeah, it's amazing. You have offices around the world. You've
Yeah.
been around for 60 years. Obviously, a lot of people got a good amount of information about yourself in that introduction, the fact you've been with the company more than 20 years. And I think this is one of those.
Yeah, 21 years.
Extraordinary. And certainly the brand that you're leading now is one of the things I'm very keen to get into. EF Adventures, given my background at G Adventures, the travel corporation, and the fact, we had brands that were competing with EF at Go Ahead Tours, like brands like Kentucky with the youth audience. And one of the things that amazed me about your business is that not only is it so massive and global, but you've had millions of travelers over that time. But the fact you actually don't even sell yet through trade partners, it's all direct to the consumer, which is another kind of staggering realization that the business is at this scale without that distribution channel. So tell us a little bit more about EF today. I guess that's, given that history and trajectory. And the specific thing I'm keen to understand is the EF World Journeys and the fact that you have introduced this adventure option that I had seen actually a presentation at ATTA from a friend of mine, Al Martian, who talked about EF and adventures. And I was so excited to see you going into this space and the destinations you serve. So I guess what propelled you into this new category?
So EF World Journeys, the family of brands I mentioned, includes 3 different businesses that cater for adults 18 to 80, so all different age groups. And EF Adventures is the newest of those 3 travel brands. So EF Adventures is for the active traveler who wants to get off the beaten path. They want to hike, bike, kayak, yoga, explore the world in a more active way, but they also want the best of what you can see and learn about the destination that you're traveling to. So all of our EF World Journeys programs, no matter which of the travel brands, are rooted in learning. That we want to take people to help them learn about the stories behind the places that you're visiting, to meet the local people that live there, to taste the local foods. And so when we launched EF Adventures, it was because we saw this growing interest in travelers to really both connect with people, connect with nature, and also wanting to combine their passion for being active with learning. And we didn't see anyone else out there that was doing it quite in that way. Funny enough, the EF Adventures, the concept of it launched during the pandemic. So we're in the middle of a global pandemic, and we're thinking about what new types of travel experiences can we help people go out and venture the world when that moment comes again. And there was a bit of a personal passion as well. I myself am a super active, adventure-based traveler. I love to hike and run on the world's greatest routes around the world. So, and EF is definitely a place that's filled. Passion is one of our core values at EF, and people really live and breathe travel, but also we're a very active culture who really puts a big emphasis on wellness. And so, team offsites often include some kind of hike or morning run or walk together. And so a few of us were looking at, what our portfolio of offering had and what were the unique aspects that set us apart as EF. And one of the other elements that's unique is that EF owns a pro cycling team. So we have both a men's and a women's team that compete in the Tour de France and the Tour de Femme. Super proud to have those, such an international group of men and women that are cycling with us. But we weren't doing a lot within the U.S. market when it came to our pro cycling team. And so we thought, well, how do we sort of bring together this passion for being active and learning together with the unique fact that we have a cycling team that has unique expertise. And then we saw a growing, the last piece of this that was really critical was that during the pandemic, as people were feeling less connected, right, we were much more isolated. And they're coming out of the pandemic, people were really looking to connect. They were wanting to, get back out in the world and take back the trips that they had missed, but they were also looking to do that in a more meaningful and purposeful way, and in a way that helps them connect with, community. There was really a resurgence of group travel, of people wanting not only just the ease and the support and the safety that comes with it, but the social connections that come with traveling as part of a group, where you're meeting other people who are interested in, that are like-minded in the sense that they want to learn about the world and in the case of EF Adventures, explore the greatest, most iconic paths and get out into nature and get off the beaten path. So we saw this rising trend of this connection that people wanted, the sense of community that people wanted, and then this desire to really invest in lifelong learning and their own health and well-being. And so that sparked the idea of launching EF Adventures, and it's now been we're almost at our 1-year anniversary of being live and having gone to market last fall. And we've had our first departures already on the road with outstanding feedback. People are absolutely loving the experience. And we've kind of seen come to life this vision of our tagline, which is travel that moves you. We want people to feel, moved, of course, in the movement of of the activity you're doing, but also, it's much deeper than that. We want people to feel like they're having an opportunity to reflect and connect with others, connect with natures, and connect with themselves, and come back with new perspectives.
For sure. No, it's really exciting. And when I saw the brand for the very first time, my instant reaction to it was, this meets the moment. Like, this is perfectly on point, because not only is it meeting customers where they are today post-pandemic, but also the brand history of EF. Like, when you know a company that has always had a great respect and admiration for EF, given that you know how to operate, and the fact that you handle students, which is a very difficult market to serve. Many people try and get into these different sectors of travel, seeing an opportunity, but very few companies stand the test of time like EF. So the fact you work with students, you have this educational component and this language component that is really at the core of the business, but it's also where customers today, they want that cultural connection. They want that immersion. Like the history of the business starting, with Swedish travelers going to England, that premise is what most young travelers are looking for today, going into a new culture, learning new languages. And so the other thing that stood out to me was yourself as the leader of this business. And I was like, it's not that often in this industry where the stars align. When I looked at this new proposition, I looked at the history of the brand, and I looked at you as the leader, and I was looking at your background, because one thing that's great about this conversation is Heidi and I have never met. That's one of the things that I saw her on stage, and she was whisked off to do some incredible epic race, which I want you to tell everyone about as well. But I also just want to highlight one of the other reasons I was very keen to have you on the Travel Trends podcast, Heidi, is because you are a perfect example of an incredible female executive that has risen up in the business, starting as a tour consultant and learning the business. As we both referenced 20 years, but but I think the next 20 years are probably the best is still yet to come with what you're going to be able to bring to this business. But when you look at your history, as you've grown in your career and with EF, it's very clear that you understand the full business. So tell us a little bit about what made you want to get into travel in the first place, and how culturally aligned you are with the business in terms of adventure and travel and your enthusiasm for this space.
Yeah. So, I absolutely love my job and live and breathe the mission. That's really what brought me to EF, was the mission of opening the world through education. And, a little background of how I got into travel. So I grew up in a small town in the Midwest in Kansas. And growing up, my family didn't travel internationally. I didn't know anyone that traveled internationally when I was growing up. And that was until my family stumbled into hosting international exchange students. So when I was in the fourth grade, about 9 years old, we hosted our first student from Norway. And then we proceeded over the next 9 years until I graduated high school. We had 9 students from 9 different countries around the world. And it was incredibly impactful. Of course, I was at a key age where I was absorbing and learning. And, for me, it was so exciting to have a new sister that was coming and joining our family every year that I got to learn from. And, suddenly I was learning new words, in other languages, and tasting new foods that their family would send, and the recipes that they would try to create that were nostalgic to them from home, and, the celebrations around the holidays. And so I really had this interest in learning about other cultures that was sparked from a very young age. But not knowing people that traveled, I really didn't know where that would lead me. And I went, then when I went to university, I had an opportunity to join this program, this international community service program. I spent a summer in Mexico as part of a Rotary International grant, and doing volunteer work and working with a school with young women in this small town I was in Mexico. And then that led me to apply for a year-long ambassadorial scholarship, where then I lived in Spain for a year and traveled throughout Europe. And I remember thinking, this will be my only opportunity to get to Europe. And so I spent every penny and then some to travel as much as I possibly could and learn as much as I could. And it was right around that time that then I stumbled upon EF. And, I was hooked from day one. I, walked in the door of EF, and it's this vibrant culture. There's an energy that you feel no matter what office you go into around the world. And everyone is really here with this shared mission of helping people experience and learn about the world and other cultures and other languages, and through any of our different EF programs. And so when I started as a tour consultant. So that's our sales role. And it was in EF Go Ahead Tours, which is our product for adult travelers. So a lot of those travelers, 35 plus, but the core tends to be people right around retirement age, or getting ready to, and are wanting to go and live out those, life dreams that they've been saving for, to go and experience new places they've been dreaming of forever. So we actually talk a lot about in our sales culture. I talk in terms of not sales numbers, but in terms of travel dreams, because we're really helping bring people's dreams to life and giving them the confidence and inspiration to go. But it's so much more meaningful than that, which is what has kept me through EF through the years. We're a part of people's stories. We're a part of their life moments. We're helping people celebrate milestones or get through a difficult time. And travel is so enriching and meaningful and impactful. And so for me, it's all mission. That's, I have stayed, and we are a culture that lives and breathes our values and our mission every day, and trying to help inspire more people to go. And so I'm not done yet, as you say, 21 years in, and I have many more years to come to go ahead of me to make a big impact.
We'll be right back.
Planning your next trip abroad? Stay connected the smart way with Olafly, the global leader in eSIMs for travelers. With coverage in over 200 destinations and a 4.6 out of 5 Trustpilot rating, Olafly is the go-to for international travel. Forget fumbling with SIM cards. Olafly's eSIM activates instantly with a QR code. You'll be online in just 2 minutes with unlimited data and no surprise roaming charges. Whether it's a short getaway, frequent business travel, or life as a digital nomad, Olafly has a plan for you. Get started today at esim.olafly.com. That's esim.olafly.com. In a world of endless travel options, how do you guarantee quality? The answer is curation, and it's the core of Civitatis, the leading marketplace for global tours and activities. Instead of just more options, their promise is more quality. Their experts handpick the best from over 90,000 activities in 4,000 destinations worldwide, ensuring every tour meets the highest standards of quality, availability, and price. They focus this winning strategy on capturing the world's fastest growing customer market, travelers from Latin America. By connecting these travelers to their global portfolio of experiences in native Spanish or Portuguese, Civitatis creates the powerful customer loyalty your business can count on. Their model is a proven formula for generating massive demand and driving industry-leading conversion. For the travel trade, the message is clear. Partnering with Civitatis is your strategy for capturing the massive outbound Latin American market and turning their growth into your revenue. Visit Civitatis.com for more details. Today, 65% of travel queries trigger an AI overview. If your brand isn't showing up there, you're losing bookings. It's that simple. This is the new reality that Propellic, the AI-first digital marketing agency for travel, helps brands master. Their entire focus is on delivering what matters, performance bookings, not just clicks. They've done the research on how AI is changing everything from search to purchase. You can find their groundbreaking new report right on their website. While you're there, join over 1,000 travel marketers by subscribing to their newsletter, The Navlog. Stay ahead of the curve. Visit Propellic.com.
And now, back to the show. I'm actually just reading Mark Carney's book, who's now the Canadian Prime Minister. I'm not bringing in politics into this conversation. The reason I'm actually mentioning it is because when he was the governor of the Bank of England, he used to run to work both directions each day. And for him, that was actually part of his daily routine to be able to keep up his physical health, his mental health, and to be able to, no matter how stressful his day had been, he was going to put on his running shoes and he was going to run home. So I love that about just in terms of learning from other leaders of how they manage stress. But tell us a little bit about the event you were doing when I saw you in Denver, where you were heading off to. Tell everyone about what you're heading off to and how you have decided to kind of build this into. You love travel. You obviously love exercise and outdoor activity. How have you built this into your career?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I'll have to look at that book because I can relate to it. I also run in and home from work, so I'll alternate. I'll bike in, run home, run in, bike home. And so it's about a 10-mile ride or run, and it's through the city. It's definitely both stress relief, but also absolutely energizing. I get into the office in the morning. I'm usually listening to podcasts and on my run and stopping every so often to write down an idea that I have. And I come in and filled with energy, ready to start the day. And, at the end of the day, it helps me process any, tough decisions that have to be made or ideas that we were generating or conversations that I had. So love to be outdoors and have that sort of time to be active coming in. But to answer your question, which was the event that I did. So after the Adventure Travel Trade Association event that was in Denver, where I spoke, I headed right off to Kansas, actually my home state. So it was super meaningful for me, and did something called Unbound Gravel. So this is the world's largest gravel race, and it brings in people from, I think there were 12,000 different participants that were coming from somewhere around 40 different countries around the world, and that come together to this smaller town that's in Kansas, Emporia, Kansas, to do this gravel bike race in the Flint Hills, which are beautiful and very peaceful. So I did the 50-mile version of this race, and but we actually had one of our pro riders, Lachlan Morton, who did the 250-mile version of the race, which is super inspirational to have seen. So yeah, and that's how I love to keep myself active. I'm traveling actually soon to go to Switzerland, and we have a few meetings in our international headquarters in Zurich. And the weekend after the meetings, there's a big group of us from EF Adventures and EF Go Ahead Tours that are staying and planning to do a hike in the Alps. And, both because we love it and it's a great way to get to, spend time together and get to know each other better. And one of the most beautiful places in the world are the Swiss Alps.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, stunningly beautiful. And you definitely, the book is interesting. Clearly you, I guess one thing that's similar in both of us, the original idea for this podcast was connected to the fact I used to ride my bike into and out of the office every day in Lonely Planet, living in Melbourne. Great weather, so you could do that year round. A little less in Canada, but nevertheless in Australia, I rode my bike to the office every day. And I used to listen to podcasts, and I used to take those learnings and I would apply them to my role. And so this is always what I'm thinking about when I have the privilege to speak to someone like you, is that exactly that person that is riding their bike to work and that's looking up and admires you with what you've accomplished in your career, and ultimately would love to have a role like yours. So I want to stay on that topic for a little bit longer, and then I want to get your views on the industry and trends and insights. But in terms of leadership, that's one of the things I was keen to understand. You're, as a leader of this business, and clearly you've grown effective teams because you've been in like sales managers roles and president roles and VP roles. As you are going up in your career, you're taking people with you, you're creating opportunities for other people. Tell us a little bit about your management style and how you work with those people around you, because everyone I could see gravitates to you and you have just a great energy about you. So what is it that you're consciously trying to achieve with your management style? And then I'm also keen to know about your vision for the future of this business. But tell us a little bit about how the team culture that you've been very focused on creating around you.
Yeah. And thank you. I mean, community is everything, I would say. People, the heart of what we do, it's rooted in people. That's the business that we're into is helping people live out their dreams or enrich their lives in some ways. And, we're a learning culture. So we're not only, educational travel for an educational, programming for our customers, but we're also about that internally. We're constantly learning and growing and trying to improve. So, I would say the things that are important to me are this sense of community. I want to know my team and have the team know each other. And I think we can do hard things together. We can solve big challenges when we work together and bring in everyone's unique skill sets all together. And so that's really important to me, is to building this sense of community and connection. And then the other piece of it is that, I'm definitely a lifelong learner. I never want to stop learning. I never want to stop growing. And I, want that for my team too. I think, we're a lot of times, that's when we're at our best, is when we can feel ourselves growing. And even in the tough times, sometimes we grow the most and we come out of it stronger on the other side. But you've got to continuous, for me, I've learned in my career, I sort of need to be the owner of my growth, even though I've had many amazing mentors that have supported me along the way. But I've really tried to encourage that with anyone else that I've worked with at EF, to continuously push yourself to take on new challenges, to be reading, to be listening to podcasts, to be, trying to challenge your way of thinking. And that's what's kept me fresh throughout my 20 years of working with the EF World Journeys brands and working with the Go Ahead Tours brand during that time, is that I'm constantly learning. It's a growth mindset. I love big, bold goals in work and in life. I think that it takes us further if we can envision something that's bold and expansive, and we approach everything with this mindset of what if. And so that's how I try to approach both my work and also, in life, whether that's doing a big race or a big, adventure race somewhere in the world. It helps me grow and develop. So those are a few things. We also lead with strengths. We love Strengths Finders at EF, and I'm a big fan of it. And so, I have positivity and futuristic and strategic and achiever and includer in my top 5. And so it's this combination of constantly looking to the future and trying to, connect with people and bring them along in that journey. So.
No, that's great. I appreciate you sharing that. And then one other thing I wanted to follow up and ask you at this point in the conversation, usually I leave this for the end, but given we've been kind of alluding to the future with the EF, and you've taken on this role in the last year, and I'm sure you're thinking about 2030, like the next 3 to 5 years, where do you want to take this business? Obviously, the EF Adventures is one of the most exciting developments, but you've got a massive core business as well. And so you've got so many different opportunities as far as I'm concerned, especially when we're seeing this dramatic increase in travel, despite short-term geopolitical setbacks that always occur in travel. There is a long-term trend that I'm sure you and the team are paying very close attention to over the next 10 years with, the generational wealth transfer, one thing that people are traveling more than ever. Young people are spending more. And this is where I want to get into some of the trends that you guys have done in your reports. But just before we do, tell us a little bit about your vision for the company and where you see EF in the next 5 years. Is there a 2030 vision, or how do you guys plan for the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, there's so much ahead. As you said, it's this generation, Gen Z is one of the most well-traveled generations, and that's going to only continue. And I think also right now, what we do is as relevant as ever. People are looking for more purposeful, more intentional travel. They're wanting to, not just sit at the beach or at the resort, they're wanting to actually connect with the stories behind the places that they're visiting, to connect with local people that live there, to experience the local traditions, to learn have history come to life, to not just see the sites that they've seen maybe in films and on Instagram and other social media, platforms, but to actually learn about them as well, and gain some grab the iconic image and then actually learn something about the place that you're visiting at that time. And so this is more relevant than ever. People are traveling more than they ever have in the past. And, they're also looking for companies that put a big focus on responsible tourism. This is a core of EF's tour design, is that we approach all of our tours with a lens on three main pillars. So we're thinking about the local communities that we're visiting and our impact there. We're looking at the impact on the environment, and we're looking at the impact on animal welfare. And so that's core in our tour design. And that's really, we saw this, and we'll talk trends in a minute, but we've seen this in the surveys that travelers actually of all ages are really looking for this in a company they travel with. So, I think that there's so much more, whether it's EF Ultimate Break, EF Adventures, or EF Go Ahead Tours. There's lots more destinations for us to visit. There's lots more ways that we can help people travel. We've launched some of those this year already to help people experience based on their own passions, whether that's, literary tours like our book talk that we have with EF Ultimate Break, or, helping people, women. We launched a series of women's tours that actually for EF Go Ahead Tours that are women led, and we visit women owned, businesses and suppliers that help people connect with other women and their lived stories. And then of course, EF Adventures, we're just getting started and in the places and the types of experiences we can introduce. So we just launched a new Norway Fjords tour. We also launched a tour to Patagonia. I'm actually going to Patagonia soon. So excited to experience that. So there's countless ideas for how we can help people, how we can foster lifelong learning and our mission of opening the world.
No, that's great. And obviously one of the ways you do that is surveying and getting a good understanding of what's happening. So EF Go Ahead Tours has their traveler index. And I was reading this with great interest and anticipation for our conversation, because one of the things that stood out to me, and I'd seen Brian Hoyt post this on LinkedIn, I was fascinating. I was reading through some of the survey findings, and one of them was that actually younger people are less likely to go on dating sites, and they're more likely to travel and with an intention to meet people, which is also kind of written on our DNA and partly what brands like Kentucky were intended for in the first place. But it's interesting to see how things swing back, and all of a sudden there is much more of an interest of in terms of finding chemistry with somebody. It's less about looking at the specific height and just specific requirements on a dating website as opposed to someone that you actually share common interests with and meet in the real world. So,
I love that trend. Actually, that's one of the most fun trends I saw in the EF Ultimate Break Traveler Index. That it's great that people are wanting to connect in real life and go out and venture in the world. And what better way to get to know someone than when you're traveling together and going through new experiences and challenging yourself in new ways. And so I love that. I was actually also just reading there's a new trend with camps. A lot of young people wanting to do embrace the nostalgia of your childhood when you used to go to summer camp every year, and they're wanting to do these adult camps where they meet new people. And so we're like, hey, what could that mean for our experience, our tour experiences? And at the root of that is this idea of connection. People are wanting to connect. We're such a digitally driven world. That's certainly our future. I didn't mention that, but of course, AI is going to play a role in the future of travel and of every industry. It's going to impact it. But of course, social media has been a big influence in the last decade, and that I think people are now wanting. They're recognizing what they're missing. As much as there's good that comes from that, they're missing this in-person connection and meaning and community building, and that's like the whole beauty of going on a group tour, is that you meet other interesting people, whether you're going looking for someone to date or whether you're just looking to meet new interesting people, in either way.
Well, here's an interesting question. In terms of the number of marriages that you guys have been responsible for, do you have any data on that?
That's funny. We should actually do a little research on that, but we've definitely had a lot of proposals. We've had a lot of people meet on tour. We've even had tour directors that have flown. We had one one tour director about a year and a half ago who they're a couple, they met on a go-ahead tour and then invited the tour director to conduct the ceremony. So he flew out to California. We helped fly him out there so he could be there for the ceremony and officiant for it. So, but there's so many more stories of proposals and marriages. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that as things have like multi-day tour, this whole category that very few agree on the terminology. Tour Radar uses the term organized adventures. Even Intrepid uses the idea of like sustainable small group trips. So people can't agree. Is it adventure? Is it multi-day tour? The reality is they're group trips. So my thing is like if there's a group, you have a guide, and you're traveling somewhere else together, you're probably and it's more than one day. You're on a multi-day tour. But one of the things from ITB, the stats that the number of people who are taking multi-day tours now exceed the number of people who are taking independent trips. So companies like yours that have been doing multi-day tour for decades that do it so well. And this is one of the, I think is one of the incumbent advantages when we do talk about AI and technology is that you actually have the direct relationship with the customer and the product delivery. And so however they get there to you, marketing, distribution, obviously a lot of those are going to be impacted by AI. But the core experience delivery, largely in the next, say, 10 or 15 years, is going to remain the same because you want to meet other humans and go out into the world and have great experiences. So I see AI having great benefits. We're doing our AI summit, of course, the end of October. But as an overall big trend, the idea of multi-day trips, Arrival of obviously bringing that to the forefront this year at their event in Washington. And so very keen to know when you think about multi-day tour trips and you see some of those trends, I'd love to hear what else stood out to you from those, like what other surprising or interesting insights came out of those reports as it relates to people embracing multi-day travel.
Yeah. So, on the topic of AI, it wasn't surprising necessarily, but it just you can see how quickly it's changing the landscape and how people are searching and discovering travel. So, we saw that 79% of our EF Ultimate Break audience, so travelers that are 18 to 35, so Gen Z, young millennials, are already using AI tools to search and discover and dream, and in some cases book travel. And so, and then we're seeing that continue to grow. So for EF Adventures, that percentage was closer to about 35% of that audience is starting to use those tools to search and discover. But what sets group travel and what we do at EF apart is the community aspect, so the group aspect, the social connections that you don't get if you're just booking an independent trip, that you miss out on this meeting other interesting people. It's the, relationships that we have for decades with local suppliers, like finding that very special, unique, family-owned vineyard or restaurant that's out in the countryside that would be really difficult to get to on your own, or you even couldn't because they only open up for special occasions and for special groups with longstanding relationships, which we've built having a international global company and legacy with success and helping support them. So our suppliers are a big part of how we curate our experiences, and those relationships help bring to life the places that you're visiting. And then we're rooted in learning. So, if you are booking something independently, you don't have the local guide who is an expert in the history of where you're going or has grown up in that region, and can give you the little insider tips and gets to know you and what matters to you. And something we talk a lot about with EF World Journeys is how are we making the experience, easy. So truly, how every step of the way to be supportive, where, one of the leading companies when it comes to safety, infrastructure and we have a, 24/7 emergency infrastructure that's there to support people. We're also talking about how we make it really personal. So we want people to be each individual that's on that trip has a reason. They have a why, what brought them to that destination or made them choose that itinerary. And that's really what our consultants and our tour directors, they love to do, is understanding the why for that traveler and how do you make that journey really special for them. And then it's the making them truly immersive so that people are learning and connecting with the local culture and traditions. And then it's how we are again connecting people and to the place and to each other. So this sets it apart. And I think, while AI will help people, fuel inspiration and ideas, and allow companies to, scale that sort of personalization, and make the booking process easy. What can't be replicated is really that, in-person connectivity with other travelers. And so I think it's exciting. It's a really exciting moment to see that, and to see how much the group travel industry, or the multi-day industry, is growing right now. And we've seen this resurgence and this, renaissance, as some would call it, coming out of the pandemic, and how much we've dramatically grown as people were turning to group travel.
We'll be right back.
Travel has changed, but many multi-day tour operators are still stuck with spreadsheets and disconnected systems. Today's travelers expect more choice, flexibility, unforgettable experiences without the friction. That's where Captio comes in. Built on Salesforce, Captio is the modern platform designed specifically for multi-day tour operators. From tailor-made trips to group tours, rail to river, we bring your itineraries, bookings, payments, and operations together in one seamless system. With automation, real-time inventory, and supplier integrations, we make complex travel simple so you can do what you do best. Serve travelers, not spreadsheets. Check out Captio.com for more details. PayCompass is the leading merchant processor built specifically for the travel industry. PayCompass makes it easy for travel businesses to get approved with high processing limits, so operators and agencies can scale without barriers. They deliver some of the highest authorization rates in the industry, backed by powerful chargeback mitigation services that protect revenue and reputation. Plus, with tools like virtual cards, PayCompass helps travel brands manage payments smarter and more efficiently. Simply put, PayCompass isn't just a processor. They're helping travel businesses grow stronger and faster. Got clients who want to travel, but none of their friends can? Meet WeRoad, one of the hottest travel scale-ups, named by Financial Times-backed Sifted FT 2 years running among Europe's fastest-growing startups. They create community-driven small group trips, where about 90% start solo and come back with new friends. All departures are coordinator-led and easy for advisors to package because flights aren't included. You own the air and add-ons. Their trade program brings competitive commissions, flexible holds, and toolkits. Go to www.weroad.com/welcome-travel-advisors.
And now, back to the show. There's three things that stood out to me in your report, and I just wanted to call out a couple of them to get your take on. One is sustainability. And this is a topic that we've talked about for 10 or 15 years, going all the way back to Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth. And now we're living with the realities that were presented then in terms of climate change. And it is certainly one of the biggest trends that we're also seeing, that people are responding to climate change, where some destinations are overheated and overcrowded. And the stat that stood out to me was that 89% of travelers in your study are prioritizing sustainable travel choices. So I'd love to get your take on that, with how EF World Journeys is addressing that demand for a more eco-conscious travel.
That's right. Yeah, we've seen that across all three of our family of brands. And so whether you're, Gen Z to baby boomers, this has now become a priority for all travelers. And with that, not only are, 89% prioritizing it, but about a little over half of travelers told us they're willing to pay more in order to, make that happen in their trip. So there's a few things that we've been doing, actually a lot, not a few things, there's a lot. This has been a focus for EF for well before even the pandemic, and now when it's sort of in the forefront. And I mentioned earlier, but I'll mention them here, the three pillars to tour design, for responsible tour design. So the first is this, protecting the environment. And so we're looking at how we measure our carbon impact that we're having with our trips. We're looking at, who we're selecting as suppliers and what are their sustainability policies, and so that we're choosing responsible suppliers, and that this is at the forefront of their decision making as well. We're thinking about it in the tour design process of how people are transporting between locations. Like in most of our trips, you're not actually circling back, so you don't fly in and out of the same airport. You actually fly into one airport, out of another airport so that you're not backtracking. That's actually also very convenient for people. It's to not have to backtrack on the trip. So there's so many elements that we're designing with supplier experiences that we're having on the ground, whether that's, in Costa Rica and you're learning about, regenerative, sustainable farming practices and going to a tree farm. So many activities that embrace this philosophy. The second is around how we're investing back into the local community. So again, this comes into the tour design of who we're choosing as our suppliers and our partners. And does that positively impact back into the community? Does that help people understand, get cultural relevance in that destination? So there's a lot in the types of activities, whether it's women's co-ops that people are getting to go and meet the women there and understand how their contributions are going back into that local community. And then it's protecting animal welfare. That's a big priority for us. It's, whether that's, if you're visiting the elephants in Thailand, and we're choosing where we're going. So we're not doing elephant rides, but instead we're going someplace where we're learning how they're, being protected and taken care of. So this is a key priority, and it's great to see that, as consumers are focused on that too. And, we're looking at, we give water bottles out on many of our products so that people can do a refillable water bottle while they're on tour. And we're giving them tips before they go and while they're on the trip of how they can, practice sustainable and responsible, behaviors, I guess, while they're on tour. So.
Well, it's interesting because obviously seeing this industry evolve and the number of companies that were almost ahead of their time with trying to address this need, because many companies were stumbling over each other, trying to do more to present themselves as more sustainable as the alternative. But it wasn't yet, like pre-pandemic, it really wasn't making a big impact on consumer decisions. Cost was obviously like the pricing and value. And so what you called out is really important, that 50% of the people are also willing to pay more for sustainable options. So the other thing I wanted to ask you on one of the trends, we've talked already about people seeking connection and community, and that certainly stood out in solo travel is one of the fastest growing sectors. So keen to get any additional takes from you on that. But the one thing I'm also really keen to get into further to the conversation about sustainability is this question of value for trips. And something I learned from Stanley Tolman, who I learned a great deal from, and his son, Brett. Of course, it was two of my mentors in the travel industry for nearly a decade. And one of the things I learned certainly from Stanley, who created, a 100-year business to travel corporation that was ultimately sold to Apollo. And it's like private equity firm. But one of the things I learned from him was this concept of value, and that you have to present, like, consumers are smart. Make sure that you present to them a really compelling itinerary with all the options that are, and with the right price that people feel like that's great value for money. And so, and that's where people are both rational and irrational creatures. But in terms of looking at an itinerary and looking at the experience they're going to have, and then what the cost is going to be. So one of the things that stood out to me about your report was that 64% of travelers are motivated by off-peak discounts. And we're starting to see people play games with pricing. I've certainly experienced that myself, where you mark things up to discount them. That's already a concern with some brands in this, some companies in this space. But in terms of customers looking for value or looking for off-peak discounts, that obviously clearly is a trend. So I'm just keen to know, how EF would apply that insight to your pricing strategy or your promotional strategy to be able to continue to gain market share. Because I think that's an important one that a lot of companies struggle with. It's like they put so much time and effort into putting a product together, and then all of a sudden people are looking for discounts, and it's a very hard thing to try and achieve. So keen to get your take on that as a leader of a global company.
Yeah, great question. So, solo and off season are two of the biggest trends right now that across the travel industry. So when it comes to off season, that there's a few reasons why that's trending. You of course have great value, to your point, that is less expensive to travel in the off season. And when we talk about off season, for anyone listening, that you have, if you think about Europe, that typically there would be sometime October through maybe April, and then you start to hit back into peak, and the summer months are peak, and it's off season is different time of the year, other parts of the world. And so besides the savings, it's also just like one of the most beautiful times of year to travel. If you're going to explore a destination, you have less crowds. So, you're not waiting in super long lines to try to get into a key site that you want to see. And you don't have, you have more access to, the restaurants that you might want to try. nearby, or the small, unique, different sites or museums that you want to get into. So there's more access, less crowds. The weather is just delightful. It's beautiful. There's light jacket or not. I mean, I've been in Greece in February and didn't even have a jacket on, and the sun was shining, and it was you had sort of you're up at the top of the Acropolis and less crowds, and it just beautiful. So I actually, it's another one of the best kept secrets in the industry is off season, and the word is out, and travelers are embracing it. So we've actually launched at EF Go Ahead Tours. We've now launched a series of off-season specific itineraries. So we've always had tours that travel during the off-season, but these are specifically designed to capture what's, the highlights of a destination during the off-season. So places like Italy, Greece, Spain, Portugal, UK, and Ireland. Those are some of the destinations that we visit on these off-season tours. Again, great value, getting at a lower cost traveling that time of year, and just more access as well. So highly recommend it. One of my favorite memories was traveling in Sicily in March. Oh, I really recommend it. It's absolutely beautiful, blue skies, sparkling seas, and it's when all of the blood oranges are in season. So you'll see trucks along the side of the road just filled with piles of oranges and fresh fruits and vegetables that you're eating, and visiting the local markets. And we went to the bar that was featured in one of the Godfather films, and sort of had it to ourselves with a cannoli in hand. And so there's so many reasons to travel during the off season.
Leave the gun, take the cannoli. Yes, that's
that's right.
It's really fascinating because obviously this is where you have a great vantage point to see customer decision in real time of what destinations are looking at. Because one of the trends that you just alluded to, of course, is the coolcation and the idea people are traveling at different times of the year for sure. Like May is the new July, as a phrase I've also heard, and that people are generationally, like, because this is one of the questions I'm keen to ask you as well, is the difference between generations. But in terms of destinations, clearly older or younger travelers will gravitate to shoulder seasons or finding great value or choosing a coolcation that they'll go to Scandinavia instead of Southern Europe in July. But one of the things I was also keen to ask you on this topic is the difference between the generations, because you, again, have a really unique insight into that, because you market to Gen Z and millennials. And then, as you highlighted at the beginning of our discussion about the different brands, you also market, and anyone who's gone to ef.com, which I'm sure quite a few people during this conversation to really understand the business and all the different brands, because you actually break it down by age group. And so you can see the different demographics. One of the things I'm really keen to understand how you're successful at doing both, because I have definitely seen from my experience working with multiple travel brands, like in-house at G Adventures, trying to figure out how best to target different markets. And then even with a company like the Travel Corporation that has brands for different age groups, from Kentucky to Trafalgar and Insight. And certain brands are really successful at matching their offering, their messaging to a specific audience. But I've not seen a brand like EF that can be great at both. Like, you're great at youth marketing and you're great at baby boomers. So tell us a little bit about how you view those generational differences between those two, and how you cater EF Ultimate Breaks to the younger demographic and then the 35 plus. So how do you as an organization approach that?
Yeah. Well, you got to know your customer. That's the why we're here. For me, that's the why I've been in this business for 21 years, and I can clearly see the impact that our programs have on our customers. And that's, what brands need to do. And we need everyone that's working in the company, no matter if you're in a role where you're talking to customers every day, or you're in a role where you're building the platforms that sort of support our customers every day. Everyone should know our customer. So we actually at EF do something really special where all of our team members will go on a tour each year. So it does a few things. It helps them get to, our team members get a chance to connect with our travelers. They get to see the product in real life, experience it from, every step of the journey. They interact. We have a very cool feature that's our mobile app. We were one of the first travel companies to have a mobile app. And what's beautiful about it is it helps people engage with each other and meet each other in the group even before they go throughout the trip and when they come back. So it really, with that mission of fostering connection and community. And this gives our staff, when they're going, a chance to interact and see how it works, see it come to life. And so, and spend time with our customers. So you go, depending on which of the products that you're working with, in some cases you might be working with all three. So you'll change which tour you would go on each year so that you can meet our suppliers and partners. You can, sleep in the hotel, eat the meal, help rate the experiences, scout for new experiences to try to find like what's the next hidden gem and thing that, people are going to want to be doing, and spend a lot of time talking to our customers. We have the advantage you mentioned earlier on the call around how we work direct with our customers. And that gives us an advantage that every single day, all day, we are getting to hear insights from our travelers. So, how that shows up can be different. If you're in EF Go Ahead Tours, most of that is happening over the phone. Most travelers are calling in and talking to us. If for EF Ultimate Break, which is our product for Gen Z travelers, that might be happening on chat, sometimes on the phone, but mostly we're chatting or texting to message or emailing with our Gen Z customers. But all day getting those insights. We also do an evaluation. So every single tour, there's an evaluation of the tour that's built into our mobile app that I mentioned, that you get a chance to give us your feedback on every component of the experience. And we have a whole team that is a quality control and customer loyalty team that's what they spend their days on, is reading the reviews and the feedback that we're hearing. They read our online reviews. They're taking that feedback then and giving it to our operations teams or our service teams that we can continue to improve. And so it's number one is like knowing our customers inside and out, understanding our product and how people are really experiencing it. And then when it comes to the design of the trip, so what someone's looking. So when you're, in your 20s and you're wanting to go visit a destination, of course, there's some things that are very similar. You want to learn about the city that you're visiting, and but you might also want to do something that's a bit more active. Maybe you want to do a night's, go on a walking tour of the markets at night, and taste the local spirit that might be typical to that location. And of course, you want to have some fun. So you might want to go out into the evening and experience what nightlife is in a destination as well. But it's actually you're right there. All of our travelers, they have in common is they want to learn. So they're right there bright and early the next morning and ready to go out and adventure the next day. But we will curate the types of things that they're doing based on, their interests. So in, the wine windows of Florence is a good example. That was a big trend. We saw it trending on TikTok and on different social platforms. And so we incorporated an experience into our EF Ultimate Break tours that went through Florence for a chance to experience the wine windows. And, we have tour directors that we specifically recruit and train and support tour directors that are professional tour directors for each of the three products. And so that is a team that is working with the tour directors are basically your guide that's with you from start to finish on the trip. They're also our eyes and ears on the ground that can give us feedback on what people are loving and wanting to do differently. So we'll, specially select tour directors that are going to, connect with that particular audience of customers, whether it's EF Ultimate Break or someone that's more active like EF Adventures, or someone who is lifelong learning and they want food and wine tours and safaris and wildlife, that if you're going with EF Go Ahead Tours. So it's really in every step of the process to understanding what matters most. Whether you're Gen Z or baby boomer.
When this comes together in terms of the destinations, clearly there's going to be places like Japan that young and old both want to go to.
Yeah.
But there's going to be destinations like South Korea, for example, that a younger generation, given, the Blackpink and the rise of these incredible artists from that region, and also just what an amazing place South Korea is to travel, where younger people are putting their hands up to say, or looking for destinations. Because as we both know, many people do start with a destination in mind. There's something has sparked them that they want to go to a destination. And then they start looking at companies that can take them there. And then, of course, you have customers that you've been with you for many years that are looking for you to introduce new itineraries and go to new destinations. So I'm genuinely keen to know, when it comes to making decisions about just destinations, how do you determine what you're going to market to the younger audience versus an older audience? Because again, clearly there's likely overlap in some cases, but in other instances, you may actually have, Colombia is not a luxurious destination, but it's a really affordable destination and it's got so much to offer a younger generation. So how do you differentiate what destinations you're going to promote to what demographics?
Yeah, it's a great question. You used a perfect example, like South Korea and Japan. I actually just got back from South Korea and Japan. I took my 20-year-old niece on an EF Go Ahead tour, and we truly had travelers of all ages, all generations, from 17 to 70s. We had travelers from every generation that were going, and some there with their mom or their dad or their aunt or uncle, and friends going, and solo travelers, and a mix, and so inspirational to see all the generations coming together. But Asia is a big trend, and I would say what's interesting with EF Ultimate Break is you sort of see the trends set by the younger generation. And so it started, we saw this growth of Asia happening with the, Gen Z audience and 20-something-year-olds super interested in things like, K-pop or K-dramas that have become really, really popular, or anime when it comes to Japan. So this trend, though, has also now reached the EF Go Ahead tours. So the older travelers that are now also wanting to go and experience South Korea and Japan. So a great example in South Korea, on our EF Ultimate Break itinerary, we do a K-pop dance class, and so much fun. It's not something we do on our we do it now actually on a brand new itinerary we just launched for Go Ahead tours, but we hadn't done it before. We started with EF Ultimate Break, and it became so popular, and we tried it out with my niece, and it was a blast. It was so much fun. But that's something that the younger generation was really interested in. The older generation was really interested in visiting the DMZ, which is an inclusion on our South Korea tour. This is the demilitarized zone that's between North and South Korea. And you go there and have a chance to visit the memorial that's there and the museum, and you get a chance to learn about the history, and that's really fascinating. But we do both of those activities on both of the products. It's just the interest level starts in different places. But you're right. What we're doing from a destination, it's less about, in most countries that we're visiting, most of the three products will also visit there, but they do it in different ways. And so if you take EF Adventures, when we go to Italy, we're doing really off the beaten path experiences. And you're going, we have a biking tour in Tuscany where you'll bike through the countryside, and then you'll end your day at an agriturismo and have, a wine tasting or a cooking class, or, meet the owners and hear their stories. And, you're staying at a premium, like, hotel that has beautiful views of the countryside, a swimming pool, spa amenities to sort of rest and recover after the end of your biking journey that you've had. So, or you're going and you're, hiking or biking in the Dolomites, which is really challenging route, and then staying at a, mountain chalet that's up in the, in the peaks, and again, with amenities and foods that are focused on wellness, and, spa amenities that can help you recover. So, that might be a typical itinerary for an EF Adventures traveler. If you're going with EF Go Ahead tours, you might either do a grand tour of Italy, north to south, to experience what each region has that's very unique, or something like a food and wine tour. One of my favorite tours I've been on was our food and wine tour of Tuscany and Umbria. And I've also done the one that's in northern Italy. And so each day you're doing wine tastings, and you're learning about the process of making the wine, and you'll have food pairings with it, and you'll go visit a Parmigiano Reggiano factory and meet the owner and hear their stories of how it was passed down for generations. Then you might go to a local market and, pick up some fruits and cheeses and breads and have a little picnic. And so it's just, Italy is still popular no matter what age you are. It's one of the top destinations for U.S. travelers to go abroad, but just how you're experiencing it might vary.
For sure. And you also point out something interesting there too, is that certain destinations are year round, and Japan is one of those. Is that you actually, there's 4 seasons, and you've got the cherry blossom season. It's great to go in the winter time. So there's some of these destinations you go once and you want to go back to see it at a different time of the year. But I had a couple other personal insight questions for you. And then I want to finish off with a few rapid fire questions for our listeners as well to get some insights from you. But one of the things I wanted to ask you just from your personal experience is, and given our listeners many of them are, I refer to them as decision influencers as much as decision makers. They're the people that are coming to you and your team and making recommendations to, hey, I listened to this podcast, or I think this destination is actually really interesting. So one of the things I would love to ask you is that, if you could give advice to your 20-year-old self, if you could rewind time, what would be one piece of advice for someone starting their career in the travel industry?
I mean, the travel industry is a work of passion. You find when people stay in the industry for a long time, it's because they love travel. They love to learn about new destinations, and they want to find the hidden gem in the place that they haven't, explored before. And your list becomes very long of all the places that you want to go. And so learn a lot, read a lot, learn a lot about different places that it will help you later in your career to, really immerse yourself in understanding what makes each country, each destination unique, what the experiences are they have to offer, what the cultural differences are in that destination. I mean, there's lots of stories there about funny moments in cross-cultural communications, a topic I'm really interested in, and working with an international travel company. And so, starting to learn about the differences in communication across cultures is helpful in your career. But really my best advice is be a learner, embrace a growth mindset, and that will help you no matter what career path you go on.
Very valuable insights. And how do you then personally stay curious and inspired?
Yeah. So I live the brand. I travel a lot, both for work and for personal. And even when I'm on a work trip, I try to tack on a weekend so I can go hike or explore some new place I haven't been to before. I read many years ago about mindfulness and try to practice that in my day-to-day, that you can be moving so quickly, but you can find sparks of curiosity and inspiration in your day-to-day, whether you're at home or on your commute or in a conversation or past someone in a hallway, or you're in a new destination and talking to someone new. And so, wellness is important to me. And I really think mindfulness is a important part of wellness and trying to be present. And, I mentioned before, relationships are important to me, and you can learn a lot from other people when when you are curious and you want to learn about them.
No, I really appreciate you sharing that. I think it means more to our listeners than because it's something they can take away and action in their own lives. And also just hearing from someone like yourself who has, risen to such a prominent position in the industry and is obviously going to continue to shape the industry, knowing those things are, so important, not only to get yourself there, but keep yourself there at the same time, right? This has been a fantastic conversation. I just have 3 rapid fire questions, and then I will give you the last word. All right.
Let's do it.
You mentioned you travel a lot, and clearly you do. What is something you take on a trip that you wouldn't leave home without?
My running shoes. Always. First thing that's packed, I make sure I have a good pair of running shoes, usually some kind of trail shoes, so I have an option to go hiking should I see a great opportunity to get off the beaten path. And
then what resource, whether it's a website, an app, and obviously it can't be EF. I know you've got the EF app, but where else do you turn for assistance in your travels or for inspiration?
To my head of market development. He's the first person I ask. Anywhere he's a walking, encyclopedia of the world, and talk about someone that's passionate about travel and loves history. So that would be the first person that I would message, would be our head of market development. But to answer what you're getting at, I actually use ChatGPT a lot now too for little things. I think it's interesting for little, very specific, if I'm trying to find a restaurant that is specific to an interest, I might, turn to that and use it as a tool now.
That's interesting. I love that you actually picked person first over technology. And I was going to instantly say that.
Definitely a person.
Yeah.
I probably have 5 more people after that I would probably use first because they have the local insider knowledge. It's the benefit of working with an international travel company.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. You have access to those resources. Awesome. And then last question, favorite travel destination and why? This can be where you're going next, but yes.
It is. It's always my hardest question. I mean, my real answer is any place I haven't been. I love going new places. I love the, feeling out of your comfort zone and, challenging yourself to learn something new, a new language, try a new food. So, I always am looking forward to someplace new. But if I'm going back and picking a repeat place, it's always a tough tie between between Switzerland and getting out into the Alps, which is just absolute natural beauty, or Italy. I mean, the food, you can't, I can never get enough gelato or pizza, true Italian pizza, and good wine. So, but that's always a tough one. I've seen there's some pretty beautiful places around this world, Japan and South Korea included, which I just got back from, and such interesting cultures to learn about. So but I will always choose someplace new.
Very cool. And that clearly is your personality. That's obviously like exploration. There's a lot that I've certainly, I've benefited from this conversation. I'm sure our listeners have as well. Your next major competition, where are you off to next for, your next marathon or your next adventure race? What's next for you?
Yeah, so I actually have a race that's coming up. It's not till next May, so I may need to sign myself up for something beforehand. But it's in Scotland. It's a trail race, running race that's in Scotland next spring. And but I have a few trips before then. I'll be at the ATTA conference, World Summit, that's in Patagonia, and so we're going to go and do a couple of the hikes that we offer on our EF Adventures tours while we're there. And can't wait. I've never been to Chile and Patagonia, so excited for that.
Oh, amazing! And I will be there as well, so I'll look forward to meeting you in person.
Great.
And I have been there once, and it is absolutely extraordinary. But I'm going to be hiking and kayaking, and it's an amazing week before the event that each of us are doing various activities. So yeah, I look forward to meeting you there. But I can't thank you enough for being a part of this Travel Trends podcast, season 6, Captains of Industry. You've certainly lived up to all of my expectations in this interview, and I'm really excited to continue to see you shine in the industry, whether it's at Skift or any of the big conferences, seeing you on stage and continuing to lead the charge. So thank you for making the time for this, and I certainly look forward to keeping in touch, Heidi. Thank you.
Thank you. I loved the conversation. Thank you so much, and I hope your listeners will, come and chat with us and visit us at efworldjourneys.com and to learn a little bit more. Thank you.
Really hope you enjoyed our conversation today with Heidi Durflinger, the CEO of EF World Journeys USA. For more information about them, be sure to check out ef.com. And next week, we're going to continue looking at tour operators by introducing another deep dive, but this time we're going to be focused on emerging tour operators. We have talked to some of the largest operators in the world. We also had our adventure series, which was led off by none other than Shannon Stoll. I love Shannon. I'm thrilled to be here at the ATTA conference in Chile, and we'll be releasing that spotlight episode very soon. And I should also mention, for those of you who heard in my introduction, about the epic cycling trip I had the privilege to go on for the week before this conference. You can check out highlights on my Instagram at DC Trips. Next week, you're going to hear from this absolutely exceptional entrepreneur, Nabila, who runs a company called, and get this, A Dose of Travel, because she was a pharmacist turned travel industry entrepreneur that has launched a tour operator. She's based in New York. She's focused mainly on South Asia, and she was an ideal person to bring on to kick off this emerging tour operator series that's brought to us in partnership with our friends over at Tourseta. That's TOURSETA.com if you want to get more information about them before we launch into that series next week. And also, don't forget, we have our AI Summit coming up in just 2 weeks, so make sure you're registered at traveltrendspodcast.com to join us on October 28th and 29th. And of course, we post clips and highlights on all our social channels, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube at Travel Trends Podcast. Thanks again for joining us. Until next week, safe travels.